Hi, my name is Charles Beusse, and I'm a candidate in the Masters of Instructional Technology program at Kennesaw State University. For my capstone project, I chose to focus on iPad-compatible interventions for students with disabilities at Dawson County Junior High School, specifically in 8th grade. The purpose of this capstone project was to implement iPad-compatible data-based interventions into the one-to-one classroom setting. The focus of this project was to improve math and reading achievement levels for students with disabilities while enhancing progress monitoring opportunities for teachers. In looking at the needs for this project, Dawson County Junior High School was selected as a one-to-one pilot program during the 2016-2017 school year. And with that, all students and teachers were given iPads to be used at school. One thing that I looked at, though, was the fact that up until this point, Dawson County Junior High School really didn't have a lot of iPad-compatible programs. And so I knew that in order to use the one-to-one technology to its fullest, we had to implement some programs that were iPad or tablet friendly. Another thing in speaking with teachers that they really wanted to see was better database progress monitoring tools. And they really wanted tools that they could easily use to pull data and get that out to parents as quickly as possible. And then we also knew that there was a need for better student engagement with these programs as well. So we really wanted to select programs that students would enjoy using. The capstone plan as a whole, some of the things that I had to do in order to make this capstone project work was, number one, I had to involve the teachers that were being involved in this implementation. And so what I did was I met with all of the special education teachers early on in the year, and I really wanted them to have input in what we were doing. I wanted to hear them out and hear what their needs and wants were for new programs for data collection, because I really wanted the buy-in factor to be big for them, because I knew that if we got all of this in place and then teachers were hesitant to use it, it wouldn't go anywhere and we wouldn't get the data that we needed. So I really wanted teacher input early on. Another thing that I had to do was obtain the funding for these programs, and I was very fortunate in that area because one of the programs we selected was Classworks, and that's a program that the county had already purchased to be used with the iPads this year, so we were able to use that. And then the other program was SuccessMaker, which we had used as a web-based version in the past, but that was not iPad friendly. So we had to work with the special education department at the county office and also the tech department and try to get some of the licenses from the web-based program transferred over into the app-based version for us to use at the junior high school this year. Another role that I had was training and assisting teachers in implementing these programs, and this was probably one of the biggest pieces in the capstone program itself and one of the most time-consuming as well, just that constant assisting as these teachers got this implemented in their classrooms. Another thing that we had to do was monitor the student progress throughout the year just to see how these programs were working. And so we did that on a monthly basis, and we also collected data at the end of the year as well in order to do that. And that really gave us an idea of how well these programs had worked. So phase one of the capstone project was selecting the interventions, and this is something that I started doing early on into the school year. And we had several different deciding factors that we had to bring up when we were choosing what interventions we wanted to select for this project. Number one, we knew that we had to have something that was iPad compatible with the one-to-one technology that we had at the junior high school. So that was first and foremost. The other thing, as I stated earlier, was I wanted teacher input on this, and I really wanted the buy-in factor from teachers to be big. So I really wanted programs in place that teachers felt comfortable using, and they also felt like would benefit their students as well. We also had to look at the allowable budget that I talked about a second ago, and then we also looked at the engagement factor by students as well. How much are these students going to enjoy using these programs? One thing that teachers really focused on was the ease of operation. How easy can we pull the data that's being collected with these programs? And then also just the progress monitoring ability. How accurate is the data that we are collecting on this? And so we tried to look specifically for programs that were data-based that would give us a good indication of student ability level. So going along with the idea of data-based interventions, and this is something that the county office special education department really wanted me to focus on, was they wanted to select interventions that were data-based. And basically what a data-based intervention is is a treatment that has been proven effective, at least to some degree, through outcome evaluations. So we wanted things that other systems, other areas have used and shown success with. So the first intervention that we selected was ClassWorks, and of course this is the one that I mentioned that the county had purchased for use by all students. And ClassWorks is a program that is web-based, and so it's iPad or computer compatible. Um, with ClassWorks, teachers select the assignments and the difficulty level that students are taking in the program. And it also allows teachers to input personal assignments as well. So it's a little bit more work on the teacher's standpoint because they have to go in and manually do all this, but it does give them a little bit more autonomy as far as what students are doing within the program. Another factor with this is assignments can be lengthy, so teachers have to be aware of the length of the assignments that they're giving to students because it can easily take much longer than teachers anticipate. But ClassWorks does do a great job of providing snapshots at the beginning, middle, and end of year in order to give teachers a glimpse of where students are at and how they're progressing. And ClassWorks also has interactive games that students seem to enjoy, and students are very engaged when using ClassWorks. The second program that we selected was Success Maker, which we had used in the past but never used the iPad compatible app-based version of this. So Success Maker provides instruction in math and reading, and the program places students at a personalized level and assigns appropriate material. So whereas ClassWorks has to, the teacher has to go in and assign the materials, Success Maker does that all for the teacher. So the students get on, they spend about 2 weeks in a placement period, and then the program places them based on questions they've answered correctly or incorrectly and assigns material specifically for that student. But the levels can be adjusted by someone with admin access. The sessions last approximately 20 minutes each, so it's a great tool to use as a warm-up or end of class assignment, and it's great for IEP progress monitoring because we found that the data that we get from Success Maker is very indicative to true student ability level. Phase 2 of the Capstone project was teacher training, and of course this was one of the biggest pieces in the entire Capstone. And one of the challenges that I ran into was the fact that teachers really didn't have a common planning within the special education department. So I did as many group setting trainings as I possibly could, but a lot of this had to be done individually before school or after school or whenever was convenient for the teachers. A lot of this also was modeling by myself of implementation of the programs within teachers' classroom. And then another big challenge that we ran into was the troubleshooting of basic iPad training because up until this year, a lot of our teachers had never used iPads before, so this is a challenge that we didn't necessarily foresee. But we were able to reach full implementation by November, which of course was pretty late into the school year, but we were able to, a big reason for that was the fact that with all the changes going on at the school, it was hard to get the ball rolling early on this. The evaluation plan for this. So we looked at ClassWorks and SuccessMaker progress monitoring data monthly, and we sent that data to parents and collected it for our records as well. And then the ClassWorks Universal Screener benchmark data was reviewed in December and May when students took those snapshots to get a baseline. Baseline data was also compared at the end of to the end of the year data, so where the students started in November compared to where they ended up in May. And then we also looked at the Georgia Milestone data results in the areas of math and reading to see if there was a correlation between performance there and students who had been using these interventions. In the area of math, we found some really good findings in the area of math. So the average student increased 0.6 grade levels between November and May, so just over half a grade level improvement in the area of math. And then more surprising was on the Georgia Milestones, we had a 13% increase in students with disabilities at Dawson County Middle School that passed the 2017 math GMAS compared to 2016, so a big jump there. As you can see here in the chart, this is the baseline data compared to the end of the year. So the math baseline for all of our students, the average grade level was a 5, and by the end of the year we had improved that overall average to 5.6. So again, just over half a grade level improvement. In the area of reading, we also saw great findings in that area as well, and actually a little bit bigger than math. In reading, we had an increase of 1.23 grade levels as an average, and more surprising, we saw a 17% increase in students with disabilities that passed the reading portion of the 2017 Georgia milestones compared to 2016. So a very fantastic jump in that area. And here you can see some of the data on the baseline compared to the end of the year. So we started with a reading baseline with students with disabilities at about a 5.4, and we ended up the year at about 6.6 in the area of reading. Some of the challenges that I ran into during this reflection was the difficulty in selecting interventions early on. There were a lot of different opinions on what programs we should use among teachers, and so we really had to get together and try to find some common ground and some consensus on something that everybody thought would work. So that took a little time early on. With the obtaining funding of SuccessMaker, of course, we didn't necessarily have to obtain the funding, but we did have to get the licenses moved over to app-based licenses that were iPad compatible, which took a little bit of time. And then the few common planning times with special education teachers was a real factor early on as well in terms of those trainings. There was also the lack of basic iPad knowledge by teachers, which slowed things down, and then a lack of uniform use across special education teachers' classrooms. So that's just some teachers really jumped on board with this and used the program almost on a daily basis, and then other teachers, might use it once or twice a week. So the data doesn't really show the same gains in every single classroom. Some of the successes that we had, though, we had student improvement in both the areas of math and reading. And then we also saw an increase in the percentage of students who passed the math and reading Georgia milestones, which was great. It also assisted special education teachers with the progress monitoring for IEPs. And this is something that at the end of the year, everybody had great things to say because they felt like these two programs really offered them a new tool to easily pull data for progress monitoring. And then also just the improved student engagement factor. Both of these programs have games and interactive things for the students to do, and so the students don't get bored when they're doing these programs. And then finally, some of the observations and advice that I would offer to other people who might be looking to implement a similar program. Have a clear plan in place prior to the end of the previous school year. One of the biggest holdups we had was at the beginning of the year and just trying to set everything up and get it in motion, especially with the changes of one-to-one that we were going to at Dawson County Junior High School. So I would say it would be much more effective if you set everything up the year before, and then on day one of school, you're able to implement it into the classrooms. It would go much more smoothly, and it would give you much more time to collect data throughout the school year. We weren't able to actually start until about November, but I think we would have seen even bigger gains in the areas of reading and math if we had started earlier in the school year. Also, data could be skewed a little bit due to the low numbers of students involved in the study. With this in 8th grade, we have about 36 students with disabilities who were using these programs. And so when you look at the percentages and the milestones and stuff, 2 or 3 kids can really skew that data one way or the other. So that's something to keep in mind when looking at the data as well. And then the teacher usage is vital for concrete conclusions. Again, some teachers use the program much more than others, and some individual classrooms showed much more improvement than others. I will say that overall, the classrooms that religiously used these programs on a daily basis showed bigger improvement than those that didn't, and I think that speaks to the fact that these programs were working. And then finally, here are some of the resources that I used for this program. Thank you very much.